partner with Axon, you immediately gain access to a full range of products and solutions designed to meet the complex needs of today's grower. We carry all major brands and sizes of tires and wheels. We specialize in large diameter wheels for large equipment. We have one of the largest OEM replacement wheel inventories in North America. Known for extreme flotation setups, duals, and triples, we have wheels for all makes and models of tractors, sprayers, combines, and grain carts. If we don't have the wheel in stock, we'll custom build, sandblast, and paint in-house. There isn't a more vast inventory in North America dedicated to helping dealers move more iron. With facilities on the West Coast and in the heart of the Midwest, leverage our 230,000 square feet of indoor inventory to solve any problem a grower may have. Move more iron with Axon.
Moving iron.
Hello and welcome to Moving Iron Podcast. This week I've got Jason Hoult back here from Anvil Appworks. Jason, how you doing, man?
We're doing very well. Spring's coming around, and it's nice to get out a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, it's nice to have a little bit of change of weather. That's not, it's still windy, obviously, but it's not blowing snow, so it's way better. I take 70 degrees and windy than 20 and windy any day of the week. So it's
For sure. Had the pleasure last week of going visiting a customer at one of their sales meetings, and we were launching with them, and definitely nice to be in the southern part of the United States and enjoying some of that and seeing some of the planners roll. And
Yep.
It's good to get out there and see things starting to happen.
Yeah, it's definitely that time of the year. A lot of stuff going on in the field right now. I got a lot of field work going on. We got a lot of planters rolling, and it won't take very long to get stuff in the ground. And there is just like every spring, things change. And you take a look around, and I kind of we talked a little bit about what we were going to talk about when we got on here, and definitely things are changing in the equipment business. It's not as fast paced as it was. It feels like there's still plenty of people interested in buying stuff, but it's just not the same pace that we saw, this time last year. And as you look across there, the conversations you're having with folks, Jason, you hearing something similar out there?
Absolutely. Prices are high. People are buying, but interest rates are higher. And that plays into both sides. I really think the number of people out there looking, as you said, is slowed down, but the people who are looking are buyers.
Yep.
And they're interested. They're better informed. They've got a better selection now than they probably have had in years to look at. So I think the winners and losers in this market right now are all going to come about how good they manage their inventory. And that's not just get rid of age stuff. We're talking about get it in, get the right stuff, get it priced right, get it advertised right. And a lot of what we're going to talk about today is going to determine who wins 2023.
Yep. So I think you hit a high point there as far as I'm concerned, looking out at the inventory place where we see now is, I don't want to say inventories are overwhelming anywhere, but there are some signs of some things, combines especially. I mean, you're starting to see combines kind of stack up a little bit. You're seeing some other things when it comes to even some row crop tractors that are starting to stack up a little bit. But the bad part about the situation in right now is that we were always concerned about turn and holding costs and all those things that come into play, but nothing like we were worried about now. When you start looking at 7.5% floor plan interest rates and those kind of things that are floating around out there. I mean, I've heard up to 8%, I've heard 9%, there's so many different numbers that I've heard come through there. Those are real dollars when you start talking about tens of millions of dollars worth of equipment. So going through that process and understanding getting it through the shop, getting it out on the lot, getting people interested, getting it advertised, doing that whole sales process is such an important thing. And I guess, Jason, customers that you're working with, have you noticed anything getting changed? Have you seen more urgency in different places? I mean, what are you seeing out there as you talk to your customers about this topic?
As we're working with dealers, they're really looking for those margin leaks. And it used to be all about like service and recon and how can we get that part right? Because that what was eating into margins. Now they realize it's holding costs more than anything else. So we've also had them look at more of what is the right margin? For years, guys like us would just throw out the same margin year in and year out. That's what we need to make on stuff. But if you're talking 8% carrying cost versus, nothing 2 or 3 years ago,
Right.
you've got to start questioning just about everything that you thought was the truth or the gospel about pricing equipment and such, and just really make sure that all those variables come into play. So it's a little bit about looking in the past. How did you sell? What did you make? How long stuff happened? But dealers are really looking at that efficiency scale right now. How do things come in? How do they get done? How do they get moved out? How do they get to the next person? And that's where they're asking us more about than how to manage recon or how do we identify the age stuff anymore. Those conversations have died down, and it's about how do we get it in and how do we get it out.
Yep. I think one of the easiest things to throw stones at is the recon process at any dealership, right? It's not my fault. It got overpriced. The shop took advantage of it or whatever. And you hear that every time. I've never not heard that, right? So as you're going through that process, now the cool thing about reconditioning is, depending on how your business system's set up and those kind of things, it's not that hard to track what reconditioning costs are for machines and what does that look like, and then going back and taking a look at what the actual reconditioning cost was compared to what you estimated, and then start making some adjustments as you go through there. The one thing that slows down the invoicing of a piece of equipment faster than anything is, it's not getting it through the shop, it's the information getting to the shop so the shop can get the stuff going. You have a very cool thing when you're set up over at Anvil there, where you have a more or less a workflow of sorts that, hey, machine comes in, this is what we're going to do to it. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. There's certain problems that technology is really good at solving, and time lag and scale are the two that they're really good at helping with. And one of them is during that trade evaluation process, and where you're looking at comps and variables and what are we going to do with this machine, and the salesperson is deeply into it and they just inspected it, is where all those decisions are made a lot of times about what to do and how to do it. But there might be months between the time frame that conversation happened to when it arrives on the lot, when it's ready for pickup, when it's ready to do what you need to do. And that time gap is what makes it hard, because when it comes in, you're chasing down who knows this, how do I find this, where's the paperwork, what do we say to do? And that's where our workflow or our order to cash process really makes it nice, because we capture during that mark sold process, when we're making the deal, we ask those questions, we create those service requests right then while it's all fresh in everybody's mind, and what are we going to do and how much money do we have to spend.
Right.
And then it just sits there in the background waiting for that machine to come in, and then it's available to that service department when they're ready for that machine. When the truck came in, it's in their work queue, they're ready to go with it. And that saves a lot of time and effort and a lot of confusion back and forth, because it disconnects the salesperson from the service department in that direct line of communication.
Right.
Salesperson can do what they need to do during EOP season, and then the service department gets what they need there. And the other part is scale. As you get larger and do some more of these transactions and stuff, it's hard to keep it all up in here. So the days of flagging down the salesperson and asking them, what were you going to do to that tractor? They don't know anymore. They're handling enough deals, enough pieces, enough time lag that being able to do this repeatedly, park it, just bring it to the salesperson when they need it, has just made a lot of difference on both efficiency and honestly accuracy as well.
Yeah.
We've all got stories, where that machine you meant to wholesale suddenly got spick and span, new cab kit and everything else out on the front line before anybody caught it. And, it just eliminates those types of errors.
Yep. And those are the errors that it's not anyone's fault. It's just a total, utter, complete lack of communication and where that falls into, and that's, whatever, that is what it is. But those things are easy to happen. They've happened to me plenty of times. So it's always a
good technology helps good people do good things.
Yeah.
And that's what it kind of comes down to. The good people doing that trade evaluation, how do we just get them to get that to service on a reliable, timely basis? And that's where technology leads.
Yep. All right. So speaking of technology, as you're looking at these machines that we're looking at valuing now, they're chock full of technology, whether we're talking about not just necessarily if they drive themselves or not, but we're talking about the internal efficiencies that come along. We're talking about See and Spray, or we're talking about Exact Apply, or whatever it is that we're talking about that on these different machines that are out there. Making sure that you have the latest pricing data, in my opinion. Now, when you're on the backside of a upswing, that's the scariest place to be, because you don't know what's at you, right? So as you're looking out here and taking a look at some of this stuff, one thing I like to do when we start looking at these kind of downturns and what this looks like and where does this thing going, I kind of go back and take a look at the last downswing we went through, and what did that look like, and where did we start seeing those pieces kind of fall into place, and what were the percentages of MSRP and all those kind of things that start popping up out there. And you start trying to play that same game on this side, because oddly enough, the percentages are still the same. It's just the dollar's significantly bigger, so it's a, when you mess up now, it's a more of a glaring thing than it was before. So I guess, Jason, as you're looking at the system that Anvil has out there right now, there's a lot of pricing things built into that give you not only what's out on the internet with your connection with TractorZoom, but also bringing in that data from the last 5 or 6 sold within your own businesses.
Yeah. The biggest difference in now is both, you can't just look at one segment and kind of understand what happened with that segment, because the whole market has shifted, the age, the population, what it entirely looks like. So we saw people buying things that they wouldn't normally buy recently. And then now we have more of this in inventory than we traditionally would. So you can't just like go to 8R tractors or row crop tractors and just see what we've done with that traditionally. So you need to understand how big of a percentage that was of your inventory, and how did it scale, and how did it go out there. But the other piece that we need to do this time is you just can't look at model numbers anymore. And that's what was really easy before, looking through some of the spreadsheets and, compare model numbers and well, they're all kind of the same because of our area. That's not the case anymore either. So that's where we, you mentioned the TractorZoom piece. That's where even just getting comps, how do we make that easier, and how do we work with that? Well, we worked with that team, and they're starting to get the description of the machine and using that to even zoom in a little bit more on the comps, so that you automatically know, does it have See and Spray? Does it have some of these other options that are on there geographically where you're at from that? So you got to dial it in a little bit closer as well. And then again, that's where technology helps. That's where some of the tools that we have, that we know the inventory and the options that it had, and the tire sizes and some of the other things, or precision farming applications, what did it have on it? So that you can start to slice that inventory down a little bit more, do some real comparables. Because I think what you're going to see is, you're going to see some stock units in that model range or that type of tractor do well, and you're going to see some do not so well. And you got to figure out why. It's not just a plain old any machine come in, any machine go out. Those options are going to start to become, very important to the customer. And that's where just having it all together makes a big difference, of being able to do your reports, being able to analyze it and say, what's this mean if I've got real width assist? What's it mean if I've got GPS included, or auto track subscriptions are there? Those now are a larger percentage of the machine price, as well as a larger percentage of the customer's buying decision as well.
Yeah. The process, the last podcast we did, we were talking about the easy button and that kind of stuff. And
yeah, absolutely.
And if you look at what's going on right now, there's a lot of folks that are still trying to push the easy button. And as you look at some of these things that are happening, 25% of the combines listed out there are over $500,000. 25% of the combines listed out there are 21 or 22, model machines. So that's a big number. The price of these machines are going to go. So really being able to keep track of what you see happening in your area and understanding what those look like and following those trend lines when it comes to pricing is more important than ever. So talk a little bit about that. And I know your system does that.
That's a great question, because what we've been really successful at is those ideas have usually been locked up with the used equipment manager, and they're the ones doing the industry analysis or seeing the trend lines, or overall where are combines moving.
Right.
And those are great ideas, But how can we bring that to the end user? How can the salesperson have some of that same insight? So when they're trying to sell the machine, they can make those same arguments, understanding, sell from a place of knowledge. So what we recently introduced was the taking some of those dashboards that we talked about early on during trade evaluations, where what you've sold in the last 2 years, how much have they gone for? What's the average? What's the percent of MDP? Those are now living right on the stock unit page. And when you look at the iron comps, auction values, retail averages, comparables, with one click, that's now available on our stock unit page as well. So not only when I'm trying to value a used combine, do I get that information back in the used equipment team, when it's now on the lot and I've got a customer looking at it, I am much more informed by being able to say, here's what we've got in inventory right now similar to it. Here's what we've sold recently. In one click, I'm on comparables on the tractors and website as well. So you are really just much more informed, more in tune. And by the way, those are all real time as you're trying to sell it. So as it kind of takes some of that time lag away as well, that, yeah, you evaluated it last August with whatever was relevant then. But when the salesperson is trying to sell it, they have today's information, today's comparables, today's other inventory that you have, with just 1 or 2 clicks right on that stock unit page within Anvil and Dealer Connect. And that is, that's the proud part of technology, is taking some really good methodology or process that we've done for years on the used equipment side, and then bringing that to the salespeople to integrate into their sales conversation and share that with the customer, and just feel more informed and better informed on today's environment. So those have been fun conversations, bringing that out and sharing that with dealers as we push that out right to the stock unit page as well.
Yeah. And that's, I really think that's it's one thing to know what you sold stuff for and kind of look at the rearview mirror and kind of see what's happening, but watching those trend lines develop of auction values or retail values or whatever that is, that's really that's the crystal ball that everybody's looking for and trying to figure that out. And believe me, working off spreadsheets and trying to track stuff, this, that, and other thing, and having the latest information, and it's not real time. And it's you do it once a month or once every 2 weeks or once a quarter, whatever it is that you're doing. And it's just, you usually miss the latest information that you needed. Because you just don't have it at your fingertips. And I think that's one thing I like about what you guys are doing there.
And the other new feature that's getting some real attention from us now is that saved inventory search. Again, I think we talked about it earlier, but it's where you can put in, I'm looking for this type of machine. And, we all wrote that down in our books for years, or a legal pad, and said, make sure to call Jim if we get this in. But that's where the new feature of save search is. I can just say, I want to save this for this customer. And the system the next day, as soon as one comes into inventory, will notify you there's a new match for your search. Again, that's kind of that Zillow technology that's been out there. As you're hunting for a new home, they tell you which ones just went on the market. Well, that's our equivalent to that as well. Sales teams can get pushed. That deal from 3 months ago where you saved this and said you wanted to know the next time we got X, Y, or Z model in? Here's an email in my inbox, says one just got created yesterday. It's a trade-in. It's ready to go. And you can close that deal right then.
Yeah.
Talk about carrying cost reduction. Talk about good customer service. Talk about the benefits to the salesperson, not having to try to keep it all up in their head and go back to that customer. That's just a win. And we're really starting to get some momentum behind that feature as well, as people start to see that the stories within the dealerships are kind of going back and forth. And that's just been fun seeing that one go live and see what it's doing in the wild.
Yep. So that kind of brings into my next point there. Just talking about optimization and finding those efficiencies that you can gain in your sales process as you're getting stuff ready to sell. Because this, again, pre-selling is the easiest way to stop things from collecting interest, right? It doesn't ever collect interest because it never when you get physically put on the books, it's getting invoiced the same day. So, as you're looking at that pre-sale process, talk a little bit about how you've married that up together to where you can better, it's like that example you gave right there, better pre-sell equipment quicker and faster.
We've all had those third-party systems that, promised us that we'll tell you who's buying combines, or we'll tell you who's in the market for skid steers or whatever else it is. And, they're right. They do have that information. where it's fallen down for us is the past is, okay, we go run some report and we go email it out, and here guys, here's a bunch of people for our sales team to follow up on, and it's kind of hope and prayer from then. What we've been able to do is work with either like EDA or some of the manufacturer provided lead systems where they're using some prediction and such, and we're able to take it that last mile. Not only is it as an export, but it's individual sales leads for each customer based upon why we think we should be calling on this customer. And then as a sales manager, you can match that up to equipment, see who's following up on them, kick a little bit if need be, or reward on the other side, who's doing a great job of following up onto those. And that's the real difference with these external third parties helping us figure out who to call on. But on the same side as well, when it's super easy to go find the last person or the people have bought this before, or even taking your logic, who currently owns what I would like to trade for, you can find that easily with just a couple of clicks in a search and find that list of customers and go attack them and go into there as well.
Yep.
And then the last piece of that is just how do we allow you to get those reminders effectively?
Right.
We've all had that scenario where customers come in and said, or talk to us and said, yeah, I feel like I'm going to trade balers this fall. And you're like, oh, cool, I got to remember that. So you write it down in your book, you write it down on your legal pad or whatever else. And comes around this fall, and hopefully you follow up with them again. But unfortunately, we've all had those scenarios where you don't, and then you find out they bought something else or you weren't in the consideration set. That's as easy right on that customer, just doing a forge ahead task and saying, call them back in October, and it's right there ready for you. You're working with that customer, you get that reminder, it's on that month's list of things to do. It's just so easy not to forget it. It's just so easy to do what you intended to do without having to have it up here again. And when you combine those three things about being able to use third-party information effectively, but then also mine your existing information and find those customers who have either looked a lot like or bought what you have or need to trade for, and then also just do the sales thing really efficiently because you have technology helping you. And when they give you that buy signal that says, I'm going to trade this fall, you can reliably be there when they're ready. You can reliably get back to them, and you don't have to try to keep it all in your head.
Yep. And I think the one thing too about that process that makes it so clean is that you can go through there and you can pick out the criteria that you're looking for. Because I think the worst thing as dealerships we do for ourselves guys is that here's a list of people we want you to call on. And it's not a list of 10 people, it's a list of 250 people. And you're supposed to go through there and manage that, and figure out who's the most, well, ultimately what ends up happening is you just go back and call on the same 15 or 20 people you always call on. And because on the list, I went down the list and I checked them off. They're on there. So I think being able to go through there and really make a good list of people that is, one, is going to be effective, and two, it's manageable. And if you can do those two things, your sales staff is going to be way more experienced with those customers, and they're going to have way more success with those customers than if we just say, here's a list of people that have bought a skid steer and there's 250 people on there, and you're supposed to decipher where do you start and where do you stop. I think that's a key part of it.
And that's the transition that is really fun to watch is what you just described was, okay, I'm going to work my list today.
Right.
And I got to kind of stop what I'm doing and I'm just working my list. When you bring that into Anvil, that changes that dynamic when it's like, I'm working with this customer. Oh, I have a lead in here from this other system that says they're likely to do this trade as well. You may not be talking to them for for that reason or anything else.
Sure.
But when you're doing that already, you have this follow-up to do, you got to do this other thing, and then boom. Oh, there's also a combine lead that came in. Let me address that during our next conversation. So bringing the leads to their day-to-day activities rather than making it a drudgery, okay, I got to sit down and make 500 calls at once, is the game changer for a lot of folks. How do we just bring that to you when it's timely?
Yep.
When you're already working with that customer or when you're already working in that area? And that's when it becomes so much more effective, when you can treat it as customers, not as a lead,
right?
Not as a call this person.
It creates that because I mean, not everyone likes. I mean, cold calls are just part of being a sales guy, but no one likes to do a cold call because you're trying to figure out something to talk to somebody about. But if you have just show up and you can say, hey, I've talked to you about whatever X, Y, and Z. I understand you're interested in something, blah blah blah. It's the dynamic of that the dynamics of that conversation is so much different than they are if you're just like, hey, it's me out today. Look at this.
But our customers, their salespeople can pull right up in the truck, pull out their iPad, pull out their phone, do whatever they're doing, and say, okay, here's what they've owned, here's what they bought a couple of years ago, here's what follow-ups I need to do today with this customer, and here's some leads that I've been fed related to this customer, and here's their service work going on as well, and here's the last 3 things they bought for parts. You can be prepared to meet with that customer, that visit, without a ton of work, and you can do it right from your phone. Which means there's honestly no excuse to go into their dry anymore, kind of cold calling, because no matter who's in your area, we probably know something about them, and having it accessible right when you're ready to do that is the difference. Really makes it feel like they're the only person you care about, because that customer is, because of so much about them. But in reality, you've used I use the phrase a lot. Just imagine if you knew what you already know about that customer.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
And it's one thing to know it. It's another thing to know it easily. And it's another thing to know it at the right time. And that's where I really feel like we make a difference.
And it's tying all those departments together, just like you talked about. I mean, knowing what's in the shop, knowing what parts they bought, those kind of things. There's times I've gone out and talked to customers with sales guys, and we're talking to them about doing something, and they're getting an engine rebuilt in the shop that we didn't know about. And they're mad at the fact that we're out there talking to them about it, whatever, I'm like, well, we didn't realize that, sir. And we look unprofessional and stupid, you know what I mean? So it's
absolutely.
So now if you knowing all that stuff, when you pull in there, then you can tell you, hey, look, before they go much further on this machine, let's talk a little bit about some options that you might have about this machine, and let's lay these out real quick, and we can make that decision moving forward. Because I think sometimes customers get fixated on just the only option in front of them, and that's the $40,000 shop bill. It's there's other options that we can look at and things that we can go down that may be better or worse than what you're in, but at least the options, right? What's out in front. I think
we had the story. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
We had that story of you're trying to pre-sell that trade-in. You're working with that customer. When am I going to be able to get it from you? When can my next customer get it? And the first question is, okay, well, when will my new one be in? And the salespeople, oftentimes, I don't know, I'll have to go dig it out. I'll have to call in. I'll have to do something with that. Well, with ours, it's click on the customer, click on the inventory, and then click on it, and you see the latest ship date from the manufacturer on that. So that's changed that whole conversation to where when you're right there, you can say, it's coming in on this date. We need a couple of weeks to get it through the shop, and we can get it to you by here confidently. Oh yeah, well, we can have my trade by then. We can get it over to the next person by then. And that just changes that from a back and forth and uninformed situation to where you can just have a much better, outcome from it.
Absolutely. And I think that's such a key part of the pre-sale process is not only knowing who you're going to take it to, but what does the timeline look like, and what do the logistics look like getting that piece of somebody. Because always, whenever you get a delivery date from a factory or whatever, it's plus 10 days at a minimum. So you freight it and get the shot and everything else. I mean, so if it's the first of the month, it's the 10th or the 15th before anybody can even think about coming and picking it up or getting it delivered or whatever it is. So understanding those logistics, and then also setting that expectation with your customer, like probably around here is when we're going to see it, and those are going to be, it's a way different conversation than, well, it's supposed to be the 1st, now it's the 10th, and now you're telling me it's the 30th. What's going on here? And you're setting that expectation early.
It even goes down to just that whole deal of like, when am I going to get it? Well, I put in a pre-delivery with service. Okay, but on my phone, I can see, and I have a technician clocked in on it right now, and they just clocked out of it. They just said it's ready to close. That information being pushed to you and readily available is really important. It's we all know those driveway to driveway sales are the best, where you take it from one customer and drop it right off at the next one is the best type of carrying cost. Zero.
Sure.
So anything we can do to support that. And that's just what it comes down to, is just knowing what you need to know when you need to know it,
Yep.
And that's what modern technology and mobile first gets you.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure. For sure. Well, I'll tell you what, Jason, that's probably a good place to stop there as you're looking at what you guys are doing right now. Talk a little bit about some of the stuff out on the horizon right now that you guys are paying attention to.
You know, customer communication is a big part of this as well. As they're not only expecting you to sell them something, they want to know what's coming in, they want to know follow-ups, they want to know the maintenance reminders. So you'll see a lot more from us around that as well, with email templates and being able to incorporate your marketing into the right sales process and service as well. Text messaging built right in, and being able to have that conversation with the customer timely into there. That's a big push for us right now, and also integrating with some of the other communication tools that are out there, so that you have that seamless one voice, consistent voice, timely collecting payments via text message, etc. Customers are looking for that and expecting that. So now that we know some stuff because of all of our analytics and the search and the consolidation that we're doing, we're working really hard on how we can push that out and communicate better as well. So cool things on the horizon for sure.
Awesome. All right, Jason. But folks want to reach out to you and get more information about what you're doing over at Anvil. What's the best way to do that?
Yeah, anvilappworks.com or sales@anvilappworks.com. And we'd be happy to talk with you, show you what we're doing. There's a sign-up form to hear some of our case studies and dive into what some of our customers are doing with us in their own voice. So always love to share those. And that's now on our new website, just right on the front page. Sign up for those case studies.
Oh, okay. And looking forward to see you guys out in Nashville here coming up in September.
Yes, sir.
Right on.
Absolutely. Looking forward as well. Moving Iron Summit is always the highlight of the year.
Wow, appreciate that. That's awesome. There we go. All right. I'm Casey Seymour, Moving Iron Podcast. Check me out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Moving Iron LLC. Go to LinkedIn at Moving Iron Podcast to see the video version of this over at the cleverly named Moving Iron Podcast YouTube channel, which is Moving Iron Podcast YouTube channel. So check that out. Go to MovingIronLLC.com for everything Moving Iron related and get more information about the Moving Iron Summit coming up here in Nashville, Tennessee, September 11th through the 13th. All the information is on the website, or you can send me an email at MovingIronPodcast at MovingIronPodcast.com. So with that, I'm Casey Seymour with Jason Hoult. Smooth Smart folks out.
Moving iron in the 21st century. Hard work